Hey all, hello and welcome, Tony Bing here. So in the last few days I put a poll up on Twitter in regards to who would be the next hero that I do a beginner's guide for. So as you can see on screen, the winner to that poll was actually Cyclops. Now in second place by just a few percent was Jean Grey, so what I'll actually do for that reason is I will follow up this beginner's guide with a Jean Grey one as well there, because it was so close. So if you're new to beginner guides, what we do is we'll have a look at different heroes in Marvel Heroes Omega to help players maybe on the fence about unlocking them, or players that are potentially just starting the game and wanting an overview of different heroes. So what we cover is their primary attributes, their offensive and defensive traits, we have a look at some of their costumes, their signature and ultimate skill, and then we finish up with some gameplay previews of various different builds you can play around with as well. So first up here we'll look at the core of Cyclops. That would be his primary attributes and his offensive and defensive traits as well. We'll start by looking at his offensive trait, and that is concussive force. Now with this you gain a flat 3% critical hit chance. The archetype is tactician, which makes sense for Scott, and he has energy and intelligence as the primary attributes. Now I would recommend stacking intelligence for the reason that that's got the crit damage rating modifier, so that's a really nice attribute. For the defensive trait, you have evasive manoeuvres. So with this, you have a 3% flat dodge chance. The archetype is versatile, and that gives you a bonus multiplier to both defense and dodge. And then what he also has is an 8% damage reduction on melee attacks, and we'll cover the melee attacks later on. They're actually a whole lot of fun, as much as you may not expect that, they really are. So there's no special resource to cover at all on Cyclops, so that's basically the core of him covered there. So let's now have a look at some of his costumes. First costume we'll look at here is his default, and that's the Astonishing costume, and it's recently had a visual update and it looks absolutely incredible now. We then have an old fan favourite, we've got the 90s X-Men. I grew up with this, so I'm a big fan of this costume. It looks great as well now. Then finishing up here we have the Marvel Now costume. The style of this is great. I like the whole X and the visor, it really does look fantastic. So that's a little preview of some of his costumes. Let's now look at his signature and ultimate skills. For the signature we have a skill called Visor Off, and not surprisingly with this one what Scott does is he pulls off the visor and unleashes the full force of his blasts. Now with this it's a dot, the duration is 3 seconds, however through talents you can actually up it to 5 seconds, which can really be pretty useful. It's fantastic for taking out mobs, and it's actually really good for whittling down bosses as well, so I like this signature a lot. For the ultimate skill we have a move called Me My X-Men. Now this acknowledges the fact that Scott is the leader of the X-Men, and with it he'll call in Jean Grey and Beast, and they'll stick around and attack, and Angel and Iceman will do a flyby attack as well. So it's a nice ultimate. I do like this, and I like the fact that it's emphasising Scott's leadership abilities, calling in help from the X-Men. With the signature and ultimate covered anyway, what we'll do next is have a look at some gameplay run-throughs, and we'll start off running through the Shocker terminal and we'll look at the beams side of things. So we'll start off by looking at the skills that he can use as his main spender for the beam side of things. So the first one he's got is Focus Beam. We're firing that off this now, and the longer you charge this the more spirit it will actually cost, but the more damage it will do, so you got to kind of balance that up there. He does also have a basic, we're not showing that off just for the reason that he has so many beam powers we couldn't fit them all into one bar for one run, but it is just a basic, so we're not missing too much by not seeing it. We then have Explosive Blast. Now this is his vulnerability applicator, but it can actually be used as a main spender as well with builds that are all built around the area side of things, so don't discredit using this as a main spender, it can actually work. We then move on to his cooldown skills, and we have Optic Devastation, and this is tremendous. It's a big huge cone attack, there we go there. Covers most of the screen, and generally it will take out the majority of trash for you. It also has knockdown as well, which is really quite useful. For a good trash clearer we have Ricochet Beam, and this is the beam that will fire on enemies and just start bouncing between them, so that is really good for taking out big groups of trash. We then have Hyper Optic Beam. Now through talents I've got this, so I can only channel it for so long, but it does a huge amount of damage. It really does. This is a very nice skill. It looks pretty simple, but it does a ton of damage as mentioned. We also have the Optic Beam, and with this particular one here, it's just a trash clearer. You hold it down and you'll swipe a big beam across the screen doing various damage. This also gains a bonus to attack speed, and also it has slow on it as well, so he's got a whole lot of options for taking out trash. He really does this, but again, it is Cyclops. I suppose he would have a lot of beam attacks, so really it shouldn't be too surprising, but yeah, he's got a lot and it's pretty interesting. The final skill we'll look at just while we're taking on Shocker is one that's to do with Scott's leadership, and it's Master Tactician. So with this, enemies will take 35% vulnerability from damage, and also a 35% weaken to damage they actually do to Cyclops there. So it's a really nice skill, and it's a good one to use when you come across bosses and so on. There's a Hyper Optic Beam there. You can see it looks pretty amazing, and it was able to whittle Shocker down quickly enough. So that's the beam side of things done. What we'll look at next is the strike team, and that's where he calls in our X-Men to help him. And this is really quite interesting, these skills. In total then, we actually have 6 different strike team skills that you can use, and some of these are modified through talent. So we'll show off 4 here, and then in the next video when we're showing off Cyclops, he doesn't have as many skills. We'll show off the remaining 2 strike team members, but for this particular run through, we will look at Strike Team Magneto. This will be an energy damage dot. There he goes, flying in there. Visuals on it, very nice. It also does slow. We then have Strike Team Iceman. This is slow again, not surprisingly, because he's icing them, and that's energy damage. And then we have Strike Team Jean. I used that just a moment ago, where she brings in a vehicle. There we go, just there you can see it, and then Cyclops blows up the vehicle. That's pretty nice. And then we have Strike Team Magic. This one's different from the last 3, and the last 3 they come in quickly, fire off their skill. It's got an 8-second dot and they fly away, whereas with Magic she's actually a summon of sorts, and that she comes in and she'll fight enemies and tanks, so she's really quite useful. For the particular Strike Team build, one thing you'd want to use when you're tanking is potentially Overwatch, and that will empower yourself and nearby allies. And then we have Eye in the Sky that we just actually used a moment ago, where Angel comes in, grabs you, and you fly about, firing down a big beam. So they really are quite nice. I do like the flavour aspect of calling in all these different X-Men, and it's quite interesting to see even calling in Magneto as well. But we'll continue to fire off the skills as we whittle down Dr. Octopus here. There we go, there's Jean with the vehicle. This also forms part of the ultimate, you possibly noticed that. And there's Magic hitting away on him. And that's us done. So, as I gave away just a moment ago, in the next portion of the video we'll be looking at Cyclops, and this is actually a whole lot of fun, this build, and we'll cover the remaining strike team members that we've not looked at yet. So here we go for Cyclops. So for this last set of skills then, we'll look at the melee side of things. Now this is something you wouldn't really expect with Cyclops, but like one of the earlier beginner's guides videos I've done, Hawkeye, the melee build on what would normally be a ranged character is actually a whole lot of fun. Now skill wise, we have your main basic melee attack, and that would be Punch Combo, where he fires off some punches and then follows up with a quick optic blast as well, so I really like the animation on this one. We then have a Spender melee attack, and that's Tactical Kicks. It gains a bonus to both crit hit damage and brutal strike damage. We then have Sweeping Kicks, and that particular one would apply vulnerability. It can actually be spam, so if you want you could use Sweeping Kicks as your main spender, but really I do like the Punch Combo so much, so I would always use that myself. As part of the melee build skills that work well with it, even though they have the range tag, would be Shotgun Beam. But this is a close kind of quarters blast. You can see I just fired it off just there. And then we also have a new skill which I just fired off again there, Ruby Quartz Prisms, where he throws up lots of crystals and then fires at them, and it's actually got quite a nice range on it as well. There we go though, you could see a couple of the shotgun beams going off there, so the combination of using the 2 skills together does work very nice anyway. Now, moving on to the strike team, we can actually see Emma there just now. So with this one, she'll jump in and she casts what would be her signature, which is kneel before me, and it does physical damage as well. We then have Strike Team Beast, and that's a replacement for magic. So this one is more of a summon, and when you actually use the skill, it'll stay with you, and he stays for you for 8 seconds. So that can be quite good from the perspective of he can tank and pull some enemy aggro. And there's another Strike Team call in there, actually it's Emma Frost again. So it's really nice seeing all the different X-Men interact with Cyclops, because that's what he's all about, being the leader. There we go, that's Taskmaster down now. So that was a Punchclops build, definitely a fun one, and I would recommend giving it a shot, because you may surprise yourself and find out that you actually prefer it over the range builds that you would normally associate with Cyclops as a character. Now, with the Cyclops Beginner's Guide finished, I did see earlier on in the video I would look to do a Jean Grey guide, so I'll get that done in the next day or two. So if you're looking forward to that, keep an eye out on the channel, and if you're not yet subscribed, make sure to do that. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all again soon.